Welcome to the Mindful Mama Movement podcast. I'm Shannon Kinney-Dew, creator of AFreeSpiritLife.com.
And I'm Ashley Walburn, owner of Home Holistic. And together, we are bringing you the Mindful Mama Movement.
Mindful mothering is about nurturing your heart and soul while you nurture your children. It's about consciously awakening to your inner wisdom and being peacefully present as a mama, no matter where you are on your journey. From discovering your newborn to loving and accepting the wonderful people who've left your nest. Our movement is empowering mamas to be authentic and to live inspired lives. We're so happy you're here. This is episode 22. Hey everyone, it's Shannon.
And Ashley.
And we're back after a break.
Back.
Yahoo!
We've been gone for several weeks, and we just, we announced, we let you all know that we were needing a break and just feeling like we didn't have time, and we've had a little breathing room. So we're going to share with you a little bit about what we've been doing while we were away. Shannon, how have you been spending your a little bit of break time?
Yeah, well, we had a little break from producing the show. We've still done some interviews, behind the scenes stuff, but it has been nice I really felt this need, I always do this time of year when spring starts, to unplug a little bit. So I kind of took a social media break. I didn't feel like posting anything on Instagram or even taking pictures. I just I just needed a break from that. And I had to trust that was going to change because I'm feeling re-inspired again to come back into some of that. But so as far as what I did, I went on a trip with Ashton. And so this was my first time being alone on a trip with just one of my boys. And we went to Park City, Utah. We didn't ski, but we snowshoed and drank hot chocolate. I felt like I ate the entire trip. Chris's stepdad and mother just spoil us, and they feed us amazing food.
I like to just, that sounds so amazing. Traveling with one kid and having people that spoil you.
It truly was so restoring. And what I was really excited for was the flight. Just to sit on the plane with him. And I knew I wasn't out. There was no computer coming with me. There was nothing but a book for pleasure. I had all this. I just wanted to spoil him and be there. So he had his little Legos we played with and some books. And but just sitting on the plane with him was fun, and so it was wonderful. And then of course getting that break to not even cook and clean and no laundry to do. And I mean, my mother-in-law truly is wonderful, and she would deliver my coffee to bed. She's like, just sleep in. I'm like, are you kidding me? Their view is the mountains.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
It really is a dream come true.
It really was. It was a very, very fun trip, and we got to make snowmen and, just do what a 6-year-old boy would love doing. So that was great. And then that led me into almost 2 weeks of having the flu and an ear infection. So I think it wasn't nearly as terrible because I had that time away. And then spring break, we had no plans. And so except I did get a note from my 9-year-old that this was the worst spring break ever, Mom, with sad faces. But that was just in a moment, honestly, Ashley. I mean, of course, they're still young, but they handled it so well. I mean, there were times where I just laid on the couch the entire day, and they were happy. It was like we didn't need much.
We don't have to get out and go and do. And
it was cold. It helped that we got snow that first weekend, and it was cold. So we had fires every day. And
that's great.
I would literally get up, put a log in, and then just lay back on the couch. We watched Moana 3 times, which, by the way, love that movie.
Is it good?
Love it. So we've been singing Moana all week. And, so we had a good time.
It's so good.
How about you? Spring break.
Well, we went the night before spring break. I was asked to do, and Shannon was there, and some of you guys have seen it, a really fun event that was called Up All Night, which ended up being terrifying for me because it's a storytelling event, and
you couldn't
you're
tell,
on.
Though. I mean, you did so good.
Well, Shannon was sitting by me. She could tell before I got on stage. And then I think I was okay once I got there, mostly because lights were in my eyes and I couldn't see anybody. But it was really great and fun. And I told story of kind of my first night being up all night. and the first night home alone as a single mom. And so that was really fun and scary. But then that led into us getting in the car and driving 15 hours to Florida all night. Like literally left the event and was up all night. And normally, I'm up all night at births a lot. And I had a really hard time that night for some reason. And I had kind of emotional for a few hours. And that I was like, screw it, like turn around, like I can't do this. And we stopped the car for a minute and I got outside and I took a few like breaths of cold air and we put some fun music on and all the boys were asleep and we did great. And my husband drove from 9:30 p.m. until like 6:30 in the morning. He drove the whole time. Isn't that amazing? I know he's a saint.
Did he sleep the next day or recoup at all?
He slept a little bit. My oldest son was with us and so he drove for a few hours. And then when we got to our condo, the rest of us went outside and we found him on the bed.
Yeah.
But we just did great. And we were in Florida for a week, all 6 of us. And there's several families that we know that go. And so the boys kind of had options of being with other kids or being with us. And it's just great. I mean, for sure, unplugging is such a gift, and
Yes.
Unplugging and looking at the ocean is,
it's
it's like the
nothing
mountains.
to me. I mean, I love the mountains. I would choose the mountains really over the beach. However, like I've been to places where you're just sleeping. That ocean, the sound, and the
a lot of
smell.
time just looking. A lot of time just looking at the limitlessness. For me, like when I'm meditating and I'm really trying to like unwind, I always visualize where we go. We go to Seagrove Beach, Florida, and the sand is the softest and the ocean is blue and there's not big waves. And so it's just a really calm, it's on the Gulf side. And I can feel my feet kind of moving in the sand and I just feel always like, yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So that was great. Driving home's always a nightmare, what? We have to drive back.
I find it interesting because I know you've had a lot going on in your life. We won't get into all of that now, but just it was interesting to me that we both decided this was a good time to take a little break to catch up on shows and life in general. And then you had stuff going on, and then I really have not. I don't remember. I always was that person like priding myself. I never get sick, and the kids even were like, "How come you never get sick? Like everyone's sick around me, and I never get sick." But for whatever reason, I did, and the longest ever, and an ear infection. I don't even remember ever having an ear infection.
So weird, like as a kid, right? Do adults do this?
It's weird, and but I shared this with you, and I just wanted to share it because it kind of goes into what the show that we're gonna introduce to you today, and. There was literally a moment in my house where my mom stepped in. My husband had to work all day. My mom's like, "Hey, I'll take the kids for the day." And we just got Sonos.
That's what we use here at the studio and at home. It's so great.
Awesome.
Yep.
So I had like this really great meditation music playing. It's just, a music program that you can play. And so that was just continuous. And I think I had a fire going at the time. That was it. I couldn't, like my eyes hurt. I couldn't even watch TV. So I just laid there. And all of a sudden, like the whole day, this is the first time I'd been home in my house all day without anybody. And so I didn't have to think of anyone. I didn't have to get interrupted constantly. And all my energy just like, it's just like this weird feeling. Like I felt like everything just like sucked back to me. Like what, and it reminded me how much I put out there. You know what I mean? And it was like this invisible, like, it's like my body to heal needed everything to just return.
Oh my gosh. Well, Shannon was telling me that a few minutes ago, just that was kind of part of her healing process. And I almost started crying. Just the giving and the giving and the giving. And I think it's a beautiful meditation, that really is a few minutes for us. Like when you're in the bathtub, that's where I go. To see all that we are letting into the universe and giving, and whether it's, breastfeeding, and that's like taking your energy and being up all night, or giving to our communities, that just seeing all that love and all that generosity and all that life force just turning back with love like light into you is really energizing and makes me feel sad today because I need it. Yeah.
Yes, I know. And I think that, since then I did a yoga nidra practice and I realized the same feeling. I've still been recouping and feeling drained, and that same feeling came back to me, and it will be a memorable one. Like this is something that is going to be my kind
Like
of
your reset.
checkpoint.
Yeah.
And to say, this is how I feel in meditation. This is why we do it. And it helps me not feel so scattered, not take so much on. Because if my energy is plugged into 50 things, how can I truly be here? And that's what I think my lesson is for why I got sick, and what, at least in that moment, what I can carry with me is to just say, okay, this is my moment, and I need it daily. We all do. That moment to just center, and then to bring that life force energy back together so that you can be more available for everyone else. So I think that kind of leads us into our show today. We are talking with Shawn Fink. Shawn Fink is the creator of The Abundant Mama. You can find her at abundantmama.com, and we'll share all of the links in our show notes. Shawn and I discovered each other on Twitter several years ago when we were first kind of starting our blogging journey, and she's the mom to tween girls. So she'll share about that and her wonderful work that she does for mamas, including a new program coming up in April. But we get in this conversation about being highly sensitive, being intuitive, being more introverted in nature, but noticing when you feel depleted in your life. And all of us, whether you're highly sensitive or not, have different trigger points on what drains you. And so Ash and I think that this is just a great show to return as we're reminding in our own life, what is going to be our reset. For us, it might be meditation or just being alone, just being alone in the house. Even watching a movie to me was like, it could be really restoring. Yeah. But what is it that you need? We want you to think about that as you listen to the inspiration from our sharing and also from Shawn. Recognize if you have some highly sensitive traits, or maybe you're raising a highly sensitive child. But really, the bottom line is no matter whatever you need in your life, to recognize that that's what you need to restore and to feel more grounded and to feel happy in your life as a mom and as a person in the world. But it might look different than what your friend needs. It might look different than what we're saying. It might look different, and to know that that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. That when we finish the show with Shawn, that Shannon and I always visit and wrap up and show each other the notes that we've written. And something that really came up for me was, of course, like I think about my children, I think about myself, and the things that really are triggers for me that make me more reactive and that make me parent in a way that isn't really what I would call optimal or the way I want to be. And so kind of the further I get into just this journey, the more I'm aware of it. And I had a hard day with my kids yesterday. They were with me at work, and we as a family are giving a lot right now in our community. And so we've been taxed. I mean, just really with like about 17 exclamation points. And so the boys were with me and helping me clean up the studio, and they just kind of weren't being nice to each other, which also felt like they weren't being nice to me. And I noticed myself getting like overwhelmed, and what it felt like visually to me was kind of like I was treading water and my kids were trying to push me under, that I just was like, come on guys, like love me. And I know it's not their job to make it easier for me, that it really is my job to help them through this journey that is sometimes highly sensitive. And I was feeling overwhelmed and reactive. And so, of course, what I go to is getting in the bathtub all by myself and locking the door. And for me, it's such a recharge. I mean, I really I just go in, I turn off the lights so the lights don't affect me. And I come out feeling like I can breathe again, like I just came up. And for each of you, it really is something different. And you're going to learn a lot just from Shawn today about traits of highly sensitive people, just like as a personality type. But sometimes for us, it's just every once in a while we feel this way, and just having that recognizing, what do I need to do so I feel more like my optimal self.
Yes, beautiful. So have a wonderful time, enjoy the show, and make sure you join us on our Facebook group where we'll be sharing in the discussion, and Shawn's going to join us there, the Mindful Mama Movement group, where she will be available to answer any questions you have. Of course, we're there always too, so make sure to join in the conversation, and we will talk more later. So enjoy the show. Hey, Shawn, welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Well, can you tell our mamas a little bit more about who you are, the work you do, and what stage of motherhood you're in?
Sure. My name is Shawn, and I am the founder of the Abandonment Mama Project, which started as a blog that has now become a full-fledged, beautiful community of women around the world who are in the busy stage of motherhood. I personally am in the stage of mothering teenagers. I have twin girls who will be going into middle school next year. And so I'm in a very different place than I was when I started my blog, which is an interesting phase to be in. What I do is I work with women who are feeling the crunch of motherhood, of raising a family, of trying to have a passionate life or a busy career, and trying to juggle it all and not completely lose their minds.
We need you. Yeah. Such good
Right?
work. Yes. Not losing our minds. That's the hard part, isn't it?
Yeah.
It very much is.
What was becoming a mother to your children like for you? And what did you find was the biggest challenge in the early years or even days?
Yeah, becoming a mother for me was extremely difficult. I loved it. It was an amazing transformation, but that first year was extremely challenging for me. In fact, I'm actually working on a new program that I'm going to release this year for women who are in that those brand new weeks and months after having a baby. And for me, it was two babies. And at the same time, my mom had moved 700 miles away. So the one person that I really thought that I was going to have to lean on was no longer available to me. So it was a really dark time. And the one thing that I know is that I took a lot of video of the girls when they were little, in that first year, really. And so I can look back and I can go, okay, I wasn't completely miserable the whole time. Even though I think I cried nonstop for 365 days, it wasn't that way. And so it was hard. It was challenging. I mean, trying to have two babies and the sleep deprivation alone is insane. But at the same time, it was the most amazing challenge of my life, and I do truly believe that it's when I fully became alive.
Yeah.
Do you have a special bond with twin moms?
Yeah, what I have noticed is that a lot of twin moms sign up for my program, and I haven't specifically targeted twin moms, but I think that the same standards that I operate on in the stress of raising two kids is it's eminent. So I always described having twins like having a constant play date at your house every single moment. And that's what it was like when they were toddlers. And it was like, it's been like that all along. And so whenever you have a couple kids, their energy is just greater.
Yeah.
So I think that stress for moms, I'm working with I have a new twin mom that I work with she's in that early toddler stage, and it's very demanding. It's constant, to have the same needs and to feel like you're constantly never able to provide for one fully. I think that was always the hardest part for me.
I don't have twins, but my last three boys are a year apart and a year apart. And whenever I'm at dinner or running an errand with just one of them, I feel like it's such a blast. And we really can have a conversation and finish it. And we're really, I mean, my youngest is 12, but my husband and I talk about it a lot. Like, gosh, when I'm just with Owen, I actually like know what his day is like, and it's so different than, everybody's kind of competing for mom.
They're totally different kids when they're not together.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't change a thing, but woo.
Right? It's a stress relief.
Yeah. It feels like a great relief. We just, as a birth doula, we birth with every mom that wants us to. And we were with a mom who was in her 40s that just had her first babies and were twins. And she and her husband both wanted this for so long, but also really overwhelmed by the demands of two and the sleep deprivation that the early weeks, and they're hitting their groove. They're doing really great now, but the beginning was, shock and awe for sure for them. Can you tell us just a little bit about how motherhood has deepened your own self-discovery process, and just any tidbits about what you've learned about yourself along the journey?
Yeah. So, because that first year was so hard for me and I felt so lonely, I really learned early on that I needed to be my own best friend and I needed to mother myself in a way that, the typical um, information geared to new moms it's never really applied to me. First of all, I'm a complete introvert. I don't really like to leave the house that much, highly sensitive. So, there's a lot of things that I just am turned off by in the public realm. And so what I found is that a lot of what I need to do to connect to myself and to my family is very quiet. It's very introverted, creative. I'm a highly creative person. And so, even if it's just looking at something creative, I feel much more connected to myself and the world around me. And so my own self-discovery process has really been very much working on the inner world of myself. I mean, I always tell people that my work, people think it's probably self-care, and it is, but it's really soul care of what I teach. And because it's not meant to be done in a, necessarily out in the public realm, it's very private, it's very sacred. And it's beautiful because you can do it on your own at home when you're with the kids around, which is how I've always done it. I've never had family to take my kids. I've never really had a lot of babysitters. So I've had to find that soul care within the realms of my family's structure.
Well, I love that, Shawn. And I love what you said that you became your own best friend. Because I still think, we meet so many moms who still, especially in those earlier days and months and years where we're still, stumbling and discovering this new person that we are becoming as a mother. But so often there's still this kind of inner guilt, that what we would do as our soul care might take away from our family rather than feed it, And so that idea of just becoming your own best friend, that's a really powerful statement. I know that writing and creativity and taking good care of yourself are always have been important to you. I'd like to know, just kind of walk us through, go back a little bit to some of the earlier years when you were learning that you needed to be your best friend. How did you make space alongside raising your kids, but then also, how has it changed now that your children are a little less demanding? And then what tips can you have for those women who are struggling, who really haven't made themselves their best friends yet?
Well, it's a loaded question for me because, first of all, I don't know that my kids are less demanding at this point in their life, and it seems so strange to say, but as teenagers, they really have no interest in sitting down and playing with toys anymore. So a lot of what they want to do is requires more hands-on from me, driving them places, getting them in activities, supervising what they're doing on social media, or not social media, but technology. In fact, I kind of feel like I have a little less time now than I ever have, at least in terms of being creative while they're around. That said, when they were 3, we moved to a new house, and I felt so inspired at the time to have we had been living in somewhat of a negative atmosphere prior. And so I just felt this new leash on life, and the girls were, there were three, so they were definitely a little easier than they had been when they were younger. And so what I actually did was I decided that I was going to finish a novel that I had started when I was about 20, 22. And that's what I did. I stayed up every night from the time they went to bed, about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I stayed up till about 10 writing this novel until I finished it. And that was probably the biggest. Oh, and as part of that journey, I cut out TV because something had to give. Like I couldn't do TV and finish this novel. So what I did was I finished the novel, and that empowered me to realize that I had things that I could do with my time. And eventually, what I ended up doing was starting a blog, which at that time was just a mom blog. I mean, literally a mom blog. And that got me into the routine of writing every single day, or at least frequently. And over the years, I realized that this act of creating, this act of writing is my self-care. It's something that is not, it's just vital for me to, I always tell people if I haven't written in a few days, I'm going to be a very cranky person. I mean, because that's literally how I get. And I don't even realize it, because you get busy, you might not sit down and actually write anything. But you realize after a while that something's not quite right. And, oh, it's because I haven't sat and journaled today, or haven't done any writing today. Because that's how I relate to the world. I have to express it through words. And so that is that. So that's how I kind of got started early on. And then more currently, in the last, I don't know, 3 to 4 years, I just get up early. Anybody in my community knows that I'm a big fan of moms getting up early. I have a whole program called the Rise and Shine Challenge that's inspired many, many, many moms to get up early. A hardcore get up early. I even got up early yesterday when I was very, very sick because my body is so used to getting up. But all I did was get up and go to the couch. So I didn't actually do anything.
Wow.
But I'm so my body is so used to getting up at that time now that it's easy for me. And that's when I get up and do everything that feels really good to me, my journaling, my meditation, planning my day, and just really kind of getting connected to myself and doing that soul care that I teach in the Abundant Mama Project.
That changed my life as well when I finally got to that place. I remember someone telling me when I had a 4-month-old, well, just get up an hour early. And I about freaked out because at that point I was not sleeping.
Like, I'm already not sleeping. Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm up all the time. But what I love too is, what you said about just do what feels good to you. What is it because talk a little bit about that, because I hear a lot of people kind of make this big deal about creating a morning ritual. Mm-hmm. And I get a lot of questions about that. Like, well, I don't even know where to begin. And so then they don't do anything. And so, it can be just an affirmation for 2 minutes. It can be whatever it is, but talk about, some of your suggestions for moms how can they decide what is that one thing or way to spend that little extra time before the family gets up?
Yeah, and people don't. I always get up, way earlier than my kids. And so when I say get up, rise and shine, it doesn't have to be an hour. That's a privilege if you get to that point. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it can be a 5-minute. Like, set your alarm to make sure that you're up 5 minutes before your kids, and don't even leave your bed if you don't have to. Right. Like you said, sitting there. Listing mm-hmm. something that you're grateful for, or saying to yourself, or even just deep breathing for 5 to 10 breaths, and just giving yourself that space to just be is a very powerful way to start your day. I always tell people, well, first of all, the main thing that gets me up and out of bed is coffee, because I'm a huge fan of it. So
okay.
I never have
you're
trouble
our people.
So that is an easy draw for me. But at the same time, if that's not your thing, knowing what your thing is the have it ready and ready to go, so that it inspires you to want to get to it. So if meditation is very inspiring to you, then making sure that you're set up to do that meditation. Where it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, so that you don't have to think about it or prep it. Yes. It's one of the common things that I hear from women, and it is true, that our kids they know they're set on our internal clock. So, they'll say, I got out of bed early, but then my kid heard me. And that does happen. And because I've been working with so many women, I know it is very much possible. But what happens is if you keep going regardless, eventually they will just sleep through. Their clock will become their own and they will no longer follow yours. And so if you just have that one little nugget of something to look forward to in your morning, even, setting your alarm for 5 or 10 minutes early will usually get you up and out of bed.
Yes, that's great.
Shannon and I have been working with moms a long time, and now we're lucky enough to get to do some great interviews with moms that are supporting moms. And I feel like we really do hear from everybody, that it's like you said, like coffee is a good motivator for me. That we really also just believe so deeply, like it might not be coffee, it might not be meditation, it doesn't have to be yoga, it doesn't have to be a walk in the woods. Like what is the thing that makes you feel the most like yourself? Can you remember like the first thing that gave you that kind of aha moment where you felt like, whoo, I feel more like Shawn today?
Good question. Well, first of all, I want to say that it's coffee and quiet that gets me up in the morning.
Amen.
Quiet being key.
It's got to be coffee in quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you asked this question because last year, as part of interviews on my podcast, I kind of came to terms with this idea of who is Shawn, and when do I get to be just Shawn? And so, because for 5-6 years I've been the abundant mama, and for 12 years I've been Jaden and Liana's mama, but I haven't really done a very good job at figuring out who Shawn is, and who she is without those titles. And that's something I'm still really working on. A lot of it is that I am those things, and that's really who I am. So I really am all of those things. So I'm not really sure that I have truly figured out if there's a separation of titles yet. As far as that moment, I would say it was probably when I started my business. I came from a family that first of all, I'm the only college graduate in my family. And going to college was a big deal for me. And I didn't come from a lot of money, and I certainly didn't know anybody who had ever owned a business before. So when I finally took the leap and I didn't really actually take the leap, but Shannon probably knows, most of us don't actually start thinking we're starting a business when we start as bloggers. And so
wasn't planning on being an entrepreneur. That wasn't, for sure what we went to school for.
Yeah. And so when I finally realized that I was a business owner, that's when I really realized I had another side of me that this is the grown up Shawn. This is and this is what I'm really good at too, So I think it was probably that moment.
It's so great. It's so great. Can you share with us, you've said several times, and you write a lot about being a highly sensitive person. How did you come into knowing that you were sensitive or highly sensitive, and learning to just embrace that was part of who Shawn is?
I wish I had learned it much sooner. I'll say that. There was a lot of years where I didn't understand what was happening. One of my daughters is also highly sensitive, but she's also somebody who is highly loud.
Sensitively loud. Common misconception.
She was loud with her crying. She was loud with her playing. She's loud now. In fact, we have a lot of the mornings where I'm like, can you please just shh, 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 So for me, it's a lot, and a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the moms, noise is the big one. Not understanding. And at the time when my girls were born, we lived in the city and it was noisy all the time there. And before my kids were born, I wouldn't have even heard that noise. But the second my kids were born, every single noise outside became a thing. And I maybe it was because I cherished quiet so much that when I couldn't get it, it was so noticeable to me. Because the kids were just constant. And or the babies were constant. And so it was definitely the noise. My daughter's crying. I tell people now, it is so normal for babies to cry. And if they're crying for long periods of time and you have no idea why and you've tried everything, it's okay. Like, it's all right. I wish somebody had told me that, because I really didn't know that. And that's one of the things that I'll be stressing in my new program for new moms, and how to cope with that. But so those were the times when I wish I had known had become so highly sensitive. Um, so I would also say, I would add, I was a journalist for about a decade, and it was in that time frame too that I can look back and see that I was highly sensitive all along. But it was only becoming a mother that it truly amplified all of my sensitivities. And so it was, Susan Cain and her book Quiet, and all the information that started coming out. It was like dripped out quietly of what highly sensitive person really is. And when I read about it, I realized that, okay, I'm a highly sensitive person, but mostly I'm a highly sensitive mom, which I think is different. I'm pretty good out in the world, but mostly I get really stressed when my children are upset. I get very overwhelmed with their demands and their their requests and their chaos and their messes and their noises. And so I've had to learn to cope with all of those things in motherhood.
Mm-hmm. Well, Shawn, you speak exactly, you describe me perfectly. And I think once I finally understood what an introvert was, this was years ago, but then adding that highly sensitive component also has helped me understand my deep need for alone time and that reset time, and maybe that time before the kids up is not enough for me, and that's okay, that I'm not a bad mom because I actually need more time alone and quiet. I am such an introverted, introspective person that sometimes I just want to be alone with my own thoughts. I just want to hear what's going on in there. Yeah. And so finding ways to do that. And I remember reading Pema Chodron years ago, and she talked about, noticing what your aversions are. And I looked at my life and I'm like, I have such an aversion to noise and mess. And I am a mom to 3 young, loud, dirty boys. It's like, what in the world? And so, but learning how to take good care of myself within that, and also to take good care of my highly sensitive kids too, that there's nothing wrong with our family if we say no to several, neighborhood gatherings because it's a Friday night and we just want to retreat for the evening or whatever. Which is funny because my youngest is completely extroverted, so he's the one that gets us out. So I'm curious for you and your own kids. You mentioned one is highly sensitive. Do you have any extroverts in your family? And also, for moms who are hearing this for the first time, maybe don't have an understanding if they're an introvert, extrovert, highly sensitive, but this is speaking to them. What are some traits that they can notice about themselves that would say, yes, this is probably what you're experiencing, and what you can do to help soften this as a mother?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know if my girls are introverts or extroverts yet. I have really not been able to figure it out. I would say that we all and my whole family lean toward introversion. But I would say, although I would say this, I think I am an ambivert, somebody who is highly charged by being around other people, but then who needs to hibernate for about a week to recover. So I'm definitely an ambivert, and I think that I see that with at least one of my daughters, and maybe both. My husband is a total introvert, and he prefers it that way. So as far as parenting highly sensitive kids, because both of my girls are highly sensitive, and so that is different than introversion and being an extrovert. And it's how, being highly sensitive, overwhelmed easily. I mean, this is me to a T. It's also my husband to a T, by the way. He's pretty highly sensitive himself. I'll give my husband something to do. I'll say, hey, can you email so-and-so? And this was an actual conversation from last night, by the way.
This isn't a hypothetical.
Somebody has this. Right? Hey, so-and-so's got a job that I think you'd be interested in. Why don't you send her a quick email? Here's the email. Here's the Facebook page. Here's the website. And for me, it was like so simple. Like, this is all I had to do. It was like a 1, 2, 3. And, this morning it was like, I said, did you send her a note? And he said, oh no, I haven't done that yet. And I know it was because it was just overwhelming to him. Like, it was just 1, 2, 3. And I see that with my kids. One of my daughters is overwhelmed so easily by, if it's a night of too much homework, you can bet she is going to be on the floor in tears even before she begins, because just the mere overwhelm of all that is ahead collapses her to the floor. I mean, and it's routine. She used to, though she's gotten much better at getting, she used to get very overwhelmed with picking out her clothes. I mean, this was, you'd think it would be so simple, but it is not for all kids. She is so easily overwhelmed, and she does much better with getting dressed now. But for a long time, we had to pick out our clothes on Sundays so that it was not an issue during the week. And that helps her.
We still do that with my 8th grader. Like, if we don't do it, it's a paralysis.
Yes, it's paralysis. So being aware of changes in the environment, my other daughter's highly sensitive to smells or things that change in the house. I mean, if you move something and she doesn't know about it in advance and approve it, she's going to have a complete meltdown about it. Sensitive to pains. My other daughter, she hit 1 year, it was like 2 years of a loose tooth because she would not let anybody touch it. She would not touch it. It was the ugliest thing you've ever seen. We look back at pictures and laugh at how awful this thing looked because she wouldn't brush it. I mean, but sensitive to pain, noises, smells, any kind of sensory, overwhelmed by lights and sounds. There's lots of sensory theater now where you can take your kids if they're overwhelmed by lights and sounds. I think anything on TV, media that is too violent.
That's me still. And I really found that out as an adult.
So draining. Yes.
It is. It's very draining. But yeah, I think those are some of the traits that, it goes for kids and adults.
Yes. Well, it's good to recognize, because I think if you don't have those tendencies, you just think, snap out of it, kid. What's the big deal? You know?
Why are you crying about socks?
Yes.
Exactly.
I have a 6-year-old who he's a self-declared vegan, and he is highly sensitive to, I mean, you step on an ant and it's, we're going to have to talk about it. He just, anything about, animals or it hurts his heart. But he's super sensitive to food. And the other day I made him a pancake and he would not eat it because it looked like an elephant head. And so and this is not the first time. And I'm curious, have you noticed highly sensitive children or adults are also highly creative? I'm just curious. I'm throwing that out there because I've just that's been my own family experience.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think that's part of the beauty of it. I mean, I always talk, when I talk about highly sensitive and I send out emails and talk to women in the program, like, it is actually a really good thing. You're seeing the world in a completely different way, in a softer way.
Yes.
You're more empathetic. You're more compassionate. I wouldn't want
super
it
aware.
Very connected to your intuition in general too.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Aww.
Well, thank you for that. I'm curious. I'd like you to just share a little bit more for those who are hearing of you for the first time, what your Abundant Mama Project is. And since you have been doing it for a while, what motivates you to keep doing this work?
Good question. Let's see. The Abundant Mama Project is a community, and it's a 4-week program that I've been teaching. We're now in our 5th year. I can't even believe that. So we've had over 1,500 moms go through the program, and it's set up in 4 weeks where we cover building an abundance practice, self-care, which is really the soul care I keep talking about, Learning to trust and let go, which is a big part of a lot of the women that I work with are control freaks, including myself, and learning to let go of some of that to create a more stress-free life. And then our fourth week is on being playful, because I know a lot of us need to lighten up and have fun with our kids, even when they are driving us a little bit crazy sometimes. So that's what the program is, and it's a blog, and I have a book, and that's called Savoring Slow, The Abundant Mama's Guide to Savoring Slow, which is sort of a precursor to the program, and gives 12 habits that you can implement to try and slow down your hours. I always tell people you don't have to cut out everything. It's really about how you live. So you can slow down and enjoy your life, and still do all the things that you need to do. And why do I keep doing this? Oh my gosh, because of the women. I mean, I have boxes of cards and gifts that they send, thank you notes, that they send to me from all over the world, and I hear from them all the time. And it's very powerful when you get an email from somebody who says, "Thank you, you've changed my life. I'm happy in my house," or "I'm happy with my kids again," or my kids are telling me that they see me in a different way. When you know that you're making powerful change within a family unit, that is a really, really inspiring thing to do.
It's the most important work. What does being a mindful mama mean to you?
I would say mindful mama would mean living intentionally. People always, you can't be present 100% of the time to your kids, but you can be 100% intentional with how you spend your minutes with your kids and around your kids. And as long as you're being completely true to who you are in that moment, that's being intentional.
Shawn, this has been wonderful. And at the end of our show, we always like to wrap up with a mindful mama moment. And this is just kind of a call to action, really, to our listeners on what they can do now that they're feeling inspired after our conversation. What's something that you'd like to leave to inspire our mamas to take some sort of action in their own life?
I would say stop, breathe, and ask yourself, what do I need right now?
Wonderful.
It's been so wonderful being with you in this. It's just like a handbook. I mean, everything that you've said is going to be so useful to the new mamas and the mamas like Shannon and I that are not so new mamas. So many really, really beautiful reminders. So we thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Shawn. And thanks, mamas, for tuning in today. To learn more about Shawn Fink and her Abundant Mama project, visit abundantmama.com. We are on Facebook. We have a group where you can join and meet other moms from around the world, where we're sharing in the discussions after each show. And thanks to you for subscribing and leaving us a review on iTunes. When you take the time to do that, you are helping our movement grow, and you're helping us get to provide more great shows for you to come. To learn more about Ashley and her doula and yoga services, visit homeholistic.com. And to learn more about me and my life coaching services, as well as my monthly online circle, you can visit afreespiritlife.com for all those details. Thank you so much for being here, mamas, and we will see you next time.
To a place where I feel wide awake. I wipe away the dirt, shake it off till I see a brand new page. I'm growing, and it takes time to realize that we're free, and I believe